we were watching a movie in here the other night, and I was like, oh, I'll just set up my DJ stuff because it's easier than setting up the surround sound speakers. So I just set up the DJ stuff, but I have a big sub back there.
Oh.
And so like I turn on the movie and I'm watching watching something, and then Jess is texting me from upstairs, and then she's just like, is something wrong? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like the floor is rumbling. And I'm like, no. I was like, the sub is on. And she's like, is that comfortable for you? It's so loud.
No, I'm sitting in a theater, hun.
Yeah, I was like, oh, sorry. So I like turned the sub down a little bit because I was watching John Wick. It's just like everything was going. But to me, I was like, oh, this is great. Like it was just like an experience.
In my face.
Yeah, I was like, oh, like keep it coming. This is awesome. Wassah Dudes, welcome to episode 8 of our retrolection.
Hello, everybody.
I probably don't have to name every episode we do, but I like to keep track because it just makes me feel good that we're getting closer to another milestone. Yeah. But Jeff, welcome back.
Yeah,
Hello.
thanks, bud. Of course, you'll be hearing this will be after the RetroCon. We will be having some material for that.
Yeah.
As soon as we get it, so you will be hearing our reviews and hopefully guest people can sit and talk to. So
absolutely, yeah. So you'll be hearing this with due to the magic of editing. We're actually recording this before RetroCon, so we don't have any stories from RetroCon yet. But you'll be hearing that sort of stuff throughout the week, or you would have already heard it before this episode came out. So don't have to overanalyze on that part, I guess. But just so that everybody's on the same page, for us in the past, it hasn't happened yet.
So Mike's editing skills will be very phenomenal.
Yeah, basically, Doc Brown came and brought
1.21 gigawatts. Remember that.
But anyway, so if you're confused that this episode doesn't have any details, you should check out all of the other stuff that we released leading up to this, and it has all of the stuff from the con. So be sure to check that out.
So.
Now that all that's out of the way.
yeah. So we're back to normal again.
Yeah, now that I have to explain myself to everybody and how everything works. But welcome back. Welcome back to, I guess we already took the name of the lounge when Bruce was on a couple weeks back. So I don't know, we can call this the Fortress maybe.
Yeah. Fortress of Retro or Retrolection.
Yeah, there's got to be something in there.
We can make up something. We can make something kind of pop with that.
I will say that if you remember in episode 1, I mentioned the name Retrolection, and I was like, man, I feel like it's kind of hard to roll off the tongue, but now I feel it's so good.
Yeah.
Whenever I say our name to people that ask what our show is, they're always like, is retrolection a word, or did you come up with that? And I'll be like, well, your boy.
Let me educate you a little bit on that.
Let me tell you. And so, and they're like, I like that. So now the more I say it, I'm like, oh, it's just so good. It's so good.
This is our 8th episode, and I feel like me and Mike have had phenomenal ideas for everything. This kind of took place with our meeting each other at our workplace. I met Mike buying games from him, and it just kind of worked out to the fact that I was like, hey, you know what? I want to talk to him and see what maybe we can do a podcast. I feel like there's enough there we could probably make material that we can talk about. And Mike was like, yeah, I'm the video guy at VU. So he said, I can definitely do that. And it's actually just worked out. We've gotten compliments of this being from our friends and everything. And I feel like we're not even at full steam yet with
I know,
this.
That's the best part too, is that I feel like there's still so much that can be done, but we're not over-promising anything, which is my favorite.
Exactly.
My favorite type of promising. Never to be over-promised.
We have so many things we want to do as episodes roll off. We've been bouncing ideas off each other. Actually, me and Mike have actually taken over a small community group at our workplace that we're wanting to set up for gaming for our job.
Yeah.
And Mike, would you want to kind of expand on that a little
Oh
bit?
yeah. So I got asked about this group that kind of like didn't have a lot going on with it. Luckily, our work is super cool, and they have all sorts of groups that you can join for pretty much anything that you're interested in. And if you want to start a group, you can start a group if you have enough people interested in it. And this one was like just video gamers at our work. And so I took the group. It hadn't had much going on with it, and just I asked Jeff if he wanted to co-host with me for the group and just kind of breathe some new life into it. And it couldn't have come at a more perfect time.
Yeah.
We just started gaining traction with our show. I feel like our friendship has really grown too. So it was just like it landed in the perfect moment of like, well, you guys want to like take this over. But it's fun because I can kind of use that as a testing ground for our show here.
Right.
To see how things work, because, you know, with the work group, it's kind of like, you know, that doesn't take priority over working naturally. So like you can kind of test stuff out and you can just see how it goes. And if it's a flop, then it's like, okay, well, I won't bring it over to our show.
Right.
And no harm, no foul if it's a flop on the, you know, the work group. So, but it's been really fun so far. And the name is World 1-1, which I don't think should get us in any trouble.
No.
And but we've been making newsletters.
Yeah,
and
Mike has actually come up with some really fantastic newsletters. He'll send me an email or a chat message during the day at work. And he said, hey, what do you think about this? And show me. And he said, do you have any ideas? I was like, well, let me throw a couple out there and see what you think. And he's like, oh, that sounds good. I'll try to work that in with the next newsletter. And the newsletters are phenomenal. I think we got some good feedback on those, the creativity of that. And I love the name of our group, World 1-1. I think that's awesome.
I think it was funny because the person that kind of was like, they sit over in my area, and they're the new lead of like getting the groups together, of like the leaders and things like that, just keeping them organized.
Yeah.
And she had asked me about the name change, and she was like, is World 1-1, like, do you think people understand that that's about gaming? And I was like, listen, any video gamer will know
what World 1-1 is.
I was like, I feel like it just stands out because the original, now we both dropped the bottle.
I dropped the bottle that time. I hope that stays in our podcast.
Call back to previous episodes.
It was my turn to drop something.
But basically I was like, any gamer's going to know what World 1-1 means. And so far everybody's been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It
seems like we've gotten some really positive feedback on that. And for right now, it's a group we're allowed to kind of put these, what I call LAN parties for work. They're actually going to let us use a facility on the weekends to put together this. For right now, Safeguard Secure, we had to work with security on that. So it's just for employees at the moment. Maybe later down the road, if security feels like, hey, can we bring a significant other or a best friend or whatever? But for right now, it's just employees only. This will give chances for us to kind of meet and greet other gamers. And I think putting something like that together, we had hit a couple ideas like bringing your own console and we'll say, oh, we have a TV and stuff ready to go.
Right.
And playing on really high-end internet and stuff like that. I think that's something
it's gonna be so much fun.
Oh yeah,
and I was gonna say, you might wonder if you don't work at our work and you're like, why are these guys talking about this? Well, a lot of our listeners do also work with us, so this is just kind of a name drop for those people that are maybe interested in that or want to join. Like, reach out to one of us. And unfortunately, if you don't work at our work, you at least get to be part of our retrolection, which we plan to kind of do a lot of these same things,
we want to do the same things too. We were talking about streaming more and playing more games and stuff. Last episode we had talked about Saturdays doing cartoons.
Yeah, see, we were talking about reminiscing about building forts and tents and Friday night cartoons, or you said Toonami, and then or like Adult Swim. I still remember. As a kid, the only time I got to watch Adult Swim, because it was only on Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
So they didn't play it on weekends because they knew kids would be up to see it. And that was before Adult Swim was like Adult Swim. You know what I mean? Like before what it is now. Yeah. They still had the like images of old people in the pool, and it was like,
I remember that.
No kids in the pool.
No kids in the pool.
And the only time I could watch Adult Swim was during the school year when we just happened to have a random like Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday off. So like I could stay up late and watch it.
Yeah. But we were talking about maybe working on Saturday where we can bring in, because I have DVDs and collections of all these cartoons that I grew up watching, cartoons, and everybody remembers Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory.
I actually really enjoyed Powerpuff Girls.
You know,
it was not just for girls.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It wasn't just for girls. It was entertaining. And we were actually talking about maybe doing some small mini episodes where we could watch maybe a couple episodes of that and then do like a little small 30-minute talk about what episode we watched and what made us laugh, you know.
Yeah, and here's the thing about that is that I can honestly say, even though I love those shows, I probably haven't seen those shows for 10 to 15 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I bet they still hold up.
Oh,
like,
they do.
I mean, even as a kid, I remember thinking like, oh, I feel like that's kind of like something adults would like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like older people would like. Or like my older brother, my neighbors that were older, like would really like to watch it with us.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this isn't just a kid show. This is like for adults too.
Yeah.
So I bet that it holds up really well.
Oh yeah, a lot of those cartoons I loved watching. I still watch today. You know, I pop in and watch them. And you know, Dexter's Laboratory was one of my favorite cartoons.
That one was so good.
It was so good. You know, with him, with his sister, she was always coming in and tearing his stuff up. You know, he'd get all bent out of shape. You know,
right.
And of course, Johnny Bravo. You know,
oh my gosh, Johnny Bravo was like, that one was so good.
Yeah,
it was just. I feel like some of my friends that listen to this that have known me from like back then would say that probably some of those characters I emulated maybe a little too much, and then I kind of just became that person.
Right. You know, Johnny Bravo. He always had his sunglasses on. He always combed his hair. You know, he had that Elvis talk to him. You know,
right. Always trying to pick up chicks.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to do.
Oh yeah, I think every now and then pop in something, watch, or even Ed and Eddie, which was another one that had some slapstick with it.
Right.
You know. Of course, they were always oogling for jawbreakers. You know,
I always wished that I would see an episode where they actually got Jawbreaker. You know what I mean?
There wasn't actually a couple cartoons where they actually had these giant jawbreakers. They would put them in mouth and they were dragging the ground as they walked around. Oh, dude, this is great, dude. It's great.
Okay, because I like the Jawbreakers always looked so good.
Yeah,
but they were huge, and
You're
like
right.
I can't remember ever a time that like they actually ever got a Jawbreaker.
Right.
Like it actually. Like maybe it was like in their mouth for like a half second, but then it was just getting on.
But those cartoons are just for me timely classics for me growing up because they were just so fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think it would be fun to just kind of relive that. You know, because why not? We had talked about like what a shame, or that it's not a shame. Luckily, that. We don't really hear like, okay, well, you're an adult, you shouldn't be doing those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
And honestly, nostalgia right now is a huge moneymaker.
It is.
So like nobody's gonna complain about nostalgia.
No.
Nobody's gonna be upset that you're reliving a memory, especially if they can make money off of it.
Having a Saturday night to hang out with your buddy. We had talked about our favorite snacks growing up as a kid. We talked about Surge. We talked about the Doritos Sausage Verdes you were talking about.
I was going to say so I don't know if I ever went into mine, but my favorite snacks to get were, I was big into, it was a candy guy. So like, I liked chips and stuff like that, but like if I was gaming, I had the strawberry cream savers. I don't know if you ever had one of those before. Anytime that like I get like the off-brand strawberry cream savers, like every so often, they do not taste anything like the original, but it's like close enough.
Yeah.
I pop one of those in, it instantly gives me memories of Ocarina of Time because I would go through like a bag of those while playing OOT.
Wow.
But strawberry cream savers, and my drink was always probably like a Dr. Pepper. Like that, Dr.
Cool.
Pepper's just king.
Is
just the best.
You can't
soda.
beat Dr. Pepper. I'm sorry.
It's the best soda out there.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. Even the diet versions of Dr. Pepper are even better tasting than most diet other sodas.
Yeah,
so.
and I feel like Dr. Pepper was the one soda I could drink with candy that it didn't taste bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's hard to drink a Mountain Dew and eat Lifesavers when you're like, this does not taste good.
Exactly, because there's like, the 23 flavors in Dr. Pepper. any type of candy you're eating is going to have one of those flavors in it. So it's just going to enhance it.
Yeah,
really.
it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
I used to drink the Diet Dr. Pepper with the Pop Rocks. Do you remember Pop
Oh,
Rocks?
yeah.
That actually was pretty good too.
Pop Rocks always made me nervous just because
I heard horror stories.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you know, growing up, I was a huge scaredy cat. Like, I mean, I just like, if there was a urban legend about something or, you know what I mean? Like, I would just be like, oh, I'm going to stand clear of that. So Pop Rocks I would have every once in a while, but
there was stuff going around in public school where like so ate like 3 bags of Pop Rocks and drank a Dr. Pepper and blew up. I'm like, what?
Yeah, then their stomach exploded.
I'm like, well, I better not eat Pop Rocks anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
you're
thinking
that and like Push Pops. I love Push Pops and Baby Bottle Pops.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, Baby Bottle Pops. When those hit the scene, I was all about it.
Yes. Another one that I used to get to, and just now remembered, was the Flintstone Push Pops, the Sherbert Push Pops. Do you remember those? They don't even sell them anymore. I used to love them.
Oh, that's a bummer.
If they do, they got somewhere where I don't ever see them, but they were in the little orange sherbet.
Yeah, like the cardboard toilet paper too.
Yeah, look like toilet paper too. You would push up, and it would, you had the sherbet to eat. It was orange sherbet, and it was Flintstone, and they were awesome.
They were so good. Yeah. The only thing that I do remember is that I feel like maybe it's because of I ate it like an animal. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, I just destroyed those things. But I feel like sometimes it would leave like almost like a paper eat, like almost like I just ate a bunch of paper.
Yeah.
Like it like taste in my mouth, and I think it was from the cardboard.
Because probably
when I would like lick it, I would lick the cardboard.
Those cardboard actually had a coat to keep the ice cream from soaking out of it.
Oh yeah.
So it actually had a slick filling on the inside of it. So if they actually rolled on the outside, you'd be like, ugh, why am I eating cardboard, I
always remember taking the little plastic stick that you would use to actually like, push it up as a straw.
Yes. Yeah. I used to grab those things and play with them and build forts and stuff with them and clean them up and then, play with my G.I. Joes with them, and I would pretend like it was like some satellite thing that Cobra was trying to build. And,
Dude. I was just, I heard this really, like, the snippet. I couldn't even tell you what podcast it was, but I heard this really interesting story about this guy that said that he clearly remembers when he kind of stopped playing with action figures. Like, I played with action figures growing up. I mean,
I did too.
I probably couldn't tell you when I stopped exactly. Like,
I don't have a memory when I stopped
either. This is not cool enough anymore. But I used to play with action figures all the time. I'd set up all the Legos and like play just like war or whatever with them. In my room, I would like kneel down on the floor and my bed was like a war zone. You know what I mean? Like I'd have the tanks out and the characters or whatever. But this guy was talking about how he started smoking cigarettes at like a young age. He was like 10 or 11 years old. So he was like, I remember I'd go and play with my G.I. Joes, and then when I'd get, I'd be like, go grab my Marlboro Reds and go outside and have a smoke. So he's like, I started mixing some real kind of kid stuff with some real adult stuff.
Right.
So I was just like, oh my gosh.
When I was a kid, I played action figures. I was huge into WWF at the time, wrestling and stuff.
Are you still big into wrestling?
I still love wrestling. I follow AEW and I follow WWE stuff now too. A lot of the stuff's changed so much now, and I like watching some of the wrestlers perform. But when I was a kid, I had all these different action figures. I had Star Trek action figures, G.I. Joe action figure. I had Transformers. I had, you can name it. I had it. Anyway, we had stuff, and I learned in shop how to build things, and I built a wrestling ring out of wood.
Oh, wow.
And I made, it was parachute cord that I chopped it to make it look like the ring had, and I built little turnbuckles and everything. And my uncle had one of those. It was a JVC video camera. It actually ran on the mini VHS tapes and everything, but it had a thing where you could set up for like 1 frame a second. So I would pose my different people in the ring and film. So I had stop motion videos.
That's awesome,
I actually got some still. I haven't copied them over. I need to make copies of them. But I had like Ronin Warriors fighting Dragon Ball Z characters, and I had them where they were moving and fighting each other.
I need to see this.
And then I had another where like Worf from Star Trek Next Generation would fight, and he would be like the champion. He would I had him like rock bottom him Goku, and it was just being a kid and being
Right,
creative like
yeah.
that, and my uncle thought it was pretty cool and everything, but it kind of wore out the tape if you did that. But I need to make some copies of those, and I need to show you those because me
That
and my
would be
brother,
so
me and my
cool,
brother
yeah.
had so much fun doing the pose, and we make sound effects and everything.
Oh my gosh. Is your brother older or is he younger?
He's younger than me.
He's younger than you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's funny because like my older brother, he's like 2.5 years older. I remember when all of a sudden he was too cool to play with action figures.
Oh,
So it was like then all of a sudden I was playing by myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which was fine for like a couple years or whatever.
yeah.
But him and I used to like take over the whole hallway upstairs in my parents' house, and like the whole hallway was just like
A war zone.
yeah, and like I remember beforehand we had to agree, usually with a coin flip or something, who would win,
Yeah.
because if it came to us like deciding in the moment, we would both get really angry
Yeah.
at each other. And be
Oh,
like, no,
yeah.
no, like my character's gonna win.
Yeah.
So before we even started playing, my parents would be like, okay, whoever picks heads, they win today. You know what I mean?
You're right.
So it's just
keep
like
the peace,
keep
peaceful
the-
war.
yeah. So then we would like play out that
Yeah.
way or whatever. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I think about this sometimes where I feel like if I had those action figures in front of me, I was in the house by myself, I 100%
Probably just sit in the floor
I
and be
100%
like, hey.
would do it, and
Yeah.
with no shame whatsoever.
Yeah, I'd
you
be like,
know?
hey, I'm setting up for a war. Let my guys fight each other.
Yeah, because I feel like it taps into some sort of like creativity. You know what I mean? Like
It does.
there's-
You're actually physically molding a story about for your own vision. Like, I could see this guy fighting this guy, or this army guy's like, who would be part of my army?
Right,
My
yeah.
own universe is coming to life here with these action figures.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the last episode we had talked about like when we used to like build forts, or when we would like make our backpacks full of snacks and pretend like we were surviving,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I was kind of doing some more thinking about that, and I remember I would walk home from school a lot. My school was probably like about a mile away from
Yeah.
my house growing up, but it was like a straight shot. You just like
Oh,
took
wow.
the street and it was just straight down that a mile, and then you would
Right.
be at my house. And on like cold winter days, just because nobody would be outside and it would be really quiet, I would pretend like I was like walking back from like a battle or something, and like because it would just be so quiet, and, like nobody would be out. There'd be no cars on the road, nobody would be out, and I don't know. So it's just
It'd
it's
be like
just wacky.
pull your backpack and get your binoculars. You laying prone in a ditch, looking around, make
Oh,
sure
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Just
Yeah.
make fun. When you're a kid, you come up with so many ideas. And,
Exactly, and it's like I didn't have my phone in front of me walking. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like
right.
I wasn't constantly stimulated. I just had to make my own
Yeah.
sort of.
I feel like today's generation. I feel it's like more like we feel like we're drones because we're so attached to our devices anymore.
Right.
You know.
Which don't get me wrong, I love my devices. But it's also like I almost feel bad for younger generation.
Yeah. Like I can't
Just
see,
because I can't see them
Yeah.
doing that. It's
And now, not to be anything political, but like with all the violence going on in schools with shootings
Yeah.
and stuff, I feel bad for the children because it's just like that for that time of my life being a kid. A lot of that was never going on,
Right, yeah.
You would go on field trips. You remember doing field trips,
Oh, yeah,
too.
yeah.
And having popcorn day on Friday at school.
Right.
There was a day the last couple days of school, they let us have a food fight in the cafeteria.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
yeah.
we had stuff like that. It's just like sometimes it feels like kids can't be a kid anymore.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like there's
Or maybe like the rules of being a kid have changed since we've been kids.
and,
I don't know. I mean,
sometimes I just miss out. Like when I was a kid, I really miss those days of having no responsibilities.
that's what I was gonna say. Sometimes I talk to people about that, and they tell me like, well, if the kid doesn't know what they've missed out on, then it's not really like missing out. You know what I mean? They don't know that they're missing out. They
Yeah.
just aren't experiencing.
Right,
Haven't
yeah.
experienced. It's not like they had it and it got taken away from them.
It was something they
So,
just never had.
Yeah, so I usually more say that I just feel bad because I know that for me those were some of my best memories.
And
But
I think,
if they still have awesome memories doing,
hey, if they now if they got awesome memories with their friends and doing
or playing sports or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Kids sign up for karate or track or soccer or baseball.
Right, yeah.
That's fun things. You have memories doing that. Winning something for your team or
Yeah.
Did you ever in school have a what they call field day? Where you go out and do it. Remember those? They would give out ribbons for your participation.
Yeah. So, well, when we did field day, it was kind of weird because I think our field day, if I remember right, our field day was always the last day of school.
Yep.
And so, it was like you show up to school, no backpack, you don't need anything, and you kind of like I think you got to like leave at like 1:00 or something.
Yeah.
But you could choose to stay until 3 and just do like the field day stuff. And so it would be like I would always end up stay later because it worked out for my parents to like pick me up later.
Right.
And so like all these kids like just one by one were like, okay, like, have a great summer, see you next year or whatever. And then it would just be like me and like 5 kids and we'd have the whole field day to ourselves. Yeah, just wild. But
yeah, it was just so fun being a kid and doing those activities in school and stuff. And each generation has had their memories. So, this generation has their memories of what they, can remember most about school and stuff. So it's just nice to have reminiscent of all that stuff growing up as a kid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get to be our age.
Yeah, when you get to be an old man. I'm older, but I don't feel it at all.
No. Looking sleek, my man.
Sleek. You got I just got my hair colored. Actually, I got gray through my hair, so I actually just dyed my hair. And I told Mike, I said, "Hey, what you think about my hair?" And he goes, "Oh, that looks nice on you." I'm like, yeah, I was starting to feel kind of old. And he looked at me, he goes, "You're not old."
No. 44, right?
Yeah.
I was like, 44 is like no longer old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when my parents were 44, that was old. Like it was like back then. I mean, that was like I was like, oh my god, my parents.
That age has been different now with this generation.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, it's just like people are getting younger every day.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's nice to kind of hit these things, and we were just reminiscing last podcast on fort making and stuff. It's just those times are just so fun to do.
Yeah. So if we haven't already incorporated something by the time this episode releases, just look forward to it because we probably will.
Yeah.
Because it's just too fun not to. But not only that is that we want to know like what you guys did. What did you do? Or are you part of the younger generation that is kind of confused by what we're talking about? Like, what is this playing war thing?
Yeah.
Or like, what are these action figures you speak of?
Yeah.
Like what are you guys into? What do you do? Perfect time to drop that you can reach out to us at at retrolectionpod@gmail.com or on our Facebook or on TikTok or whatever.
If you got little stories to share with us on stuff that you did as a kid that you kind of relate to what we were talking about, that'd be awesome to hear. We can always throw it up on our Facebook page and share it with if you want to share it with everybody else.
Right.
I think that'd be kind of cool to have like something that we can have something to reminisce. It's like, oh, I remember that.
Or like, oh wow, like you did that. That's crazy.
So. Please, feel free to share your stories. We'd be more than happy to post it.
We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, have a discussion.
And this is so like out of left field, but I just remembered in the last episode I name dropped Open by Accident, right?
Yep.
The podcast, great guys, check them out. But I had a point that I was trying to make in that episode, and then I completely forgot what I was talking about. I just remember what it was. So before I forget again, first of all, check out Open by Accident podcast, but also. They talked about, this is a complete shift segue here, but they talked about playing Age of Empires 2 together.
Yes.
Okay? I was an Age of Mythology man.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played Age of Empires 2, but I assume it's very similar.
It's very fun.
But they said that you can still play online.
Yep.
Together. We should totally do that.
Yes. Actually, Microsoft has re-released all those now.
Oh.
So you can get them on Game Pass, too, on your PC and run them on your PC as well.
Oh, okay.
So I actually own the remakes. So
interesting.
I love Age of Empires. It's so much fun. I actually have a friend of mine that I work with that actually had never played them before, and he played them. And he was battling his buddy, and he was just like... He didn't really know how to play, so he was kind of building like soldiers, but he was also getting like the farmers and stuff. They were all running in the battle, so he was just sending everybody he could in the battle. I'm like, well, how much people do you have left in your population? Because I don't remember. I think I had like 2 people. You sent everybody in. He goes, yeah. He said I ended up winning. I'm like, I can just see the guy with a pitchfork just kind of killing guys with a pitchfork.
Right. I know. I actually played Age of Mythology recently because I have it on Steam.
Yeah.
and I suck like really bad. And I just play against the computer at like low settings, and I'm just not. I don't know. I used to have it like when I owned that game back on DOS or whatever it was that I played it on. Probably not that old, but back in the day when I played it, I just remember being king at that game. I was just my army was tough, and like I had the computer at one of the hardest settings, and I was just raining on them, and destroying everything piece by piece. And now I don't know what happened. I'm like still in the Stone Age, and they come up and they're on boats and they're like 5 or 6 civilizations ahead of me, and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but I'd love to play against other actual people, because Matt and Nick were talking about how they would like set up like rules of war, so they'd be like, we can only attack after this many like minutes or hours or whatever.
So it gives you time to actually build your troops, get your your supply chain going with your
right. And they'd keep it fun by like, I think they said that they had designated play areas where like they wouldn't attack each other's bases like yet. They would have like wars like just in random spots that were like designated, which just sounds awesome. Like that's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a game that's really I played those, and I don't know if you remember Warcraft 3. They had the Frozen Throne and Reign of Chaos, or I think it's Reign.
I've never played Warcraft, but I know what you're talking about.
The original one, not the remake, but they did come out with a remake that didn't go very well with the audience. But the original Warcraft 3s were awesome too.
Warcraft, that's not the same as Warhammer, right?
No, it's different.
Okay.
Warhammer is different, but those are some other games that's really fun to play online too, that you can still find people. But yeah, Age of Empires, dude, that takes me back, because when those games came out, I thought those were like my entry level into RTSs.
Yes,
because I played that first before I even got into Warcraft 3, and when Warcraft 3 came out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I kind of feel like I know how to play this.
Did you ever play Heroes of Might and Magic? It was kind of around the same era.
I don't think I touched that one.
So I remember really enjoying Heroes of Might and Magic, but I think I played it recently-ish, within the last like 5 years or something. And I just couldn't get the hang of it.
Oh, really?
But basically it's like your whole army is with you, and you're kind of like on a top-down view of a map, if I remember correctly, and you're just one person.
Right.
And you go around, and it's kind of like Final Fantasy in the sense of like, I don't think you have random encounters, but you go around this map, and then you can see encounters, and then it's like you have your army, and then there's people in a castle, and so then the people in the castle attack you, and you attack them, but it's just on one screen, and it just kind of happens.
Cool.
But it's really, I remember being really fun. And then I played it somewhat recently, and it was not fun.
You're like, what? This game, why is it not fun anymore?
I was like, man, I don't know why, because I used to suck at computer games. I mean, I just was not any good. So I was like, I don't know why I was good back then, and now I don't understand what I'm doing.
Another one I played on a PC too was Command and Conquer.
I was just about to ask about that.
Yeah, I love those too. Those were some good games.
Actually, I think Command and Conquer is free on Steam right now.
Red Alert. Not really.
Red Alert, I believe.
Okay, the Red Alert one. Yeah, those were actually really good. The music on those were always like really good.
Yeah,
too.
those were bangers.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man. Yeah, I might have to. I remember like I booted it up, and then I was like, do I really want to get into an RTS right now? I don't know. But
yeah, some of those are just like time consuming, but also like sometimes you can get into where you can just kind of like, what was one? Civilizations was one that you can get on and play.
Oh yeah, well Bruce talked about when he was on.
I heard him talk about.
He was talking about Civ 2.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I ever played Civilization, especially because I had asked him if it was kind of like Sim City, but he was like, no, it's not. So I'm like, I was gonna say I'm just like out in left field with it. I guess I don't really actually know what Civilization is.
Right.
But is it like
It's an RTS. It's a little bit more creative with like you actually pick a faction like Germany or Spain or whatever, and you build up like your own country with but it's definitely something that if you're interested in it, check it out to see. It's not overly hard. It's just kind of like understanding how it works.
Do you know? Can you still play those games like on stuff now, or do you have to have like an older PC to run it?
A lot of those are backwards compatible. They have actually made patches and stuff for them. So if you go on Steam, and if you look at the forum, and it'll tell you if there's something you have to add to make it play. So
Okay, yeah.
So, but yeah, the Civilization is actually a pretty fun game too.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah.
but-
Can you turn your mic just a little bit more towards? Yeah, there we go. I think when the cable came down, it just
okay.
swung out a little bit. But
Gotcha.
it was looking fine, but just in case.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Civilization 2, I know because Bruce was asking about emulating it.
Yeah.
Which piracy is illegal, whatever. But he actually does own the original copy of it. I can't remember what the rule is on. If
Yeah,
you
I think
own the copy and you emulate
you
it.
can
or,
have a copy of it, but you can't distribute it.
Right,
If you
yeah.
own it, but you can't distribute it or sell it to anybody else.
But yeah, I'd love to try it just because he said that it was just one of his pinnacle of gaming memories was playing that game. So I'd love to just see what it was
PC
about.
gaming has come a long way, even with the Apple II. The Apple II actually had games too. It was a machine that actually played games.
Oh, really?
So like Oregon Trail was one of them on there.
Like the original Oregon Trail?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
It actually had some some racing games and stuff like that. There was one on there that I played in school, and you would laugh, but it was called Number Munchers.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah.
When I was in school, so that they would teach us multiplication tables on how to learn how to multiply, whatever. So it was this little Pac-Man looking thing. He had long legs. He was green, and you would have a board, and it said multiples of 2. So you would hit the multiples of 2, like whatever's on there, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, and it had these little monsters that would come across and try to eat your numbers before you get to them, and you would have to try to clear the board as fast as you can before it. And it was something that taught you your multiplication, but it was also something that you could build score and put your score up and hopefully you beat somebody. So it was in a special type. When schools actually had money to buy computers, it was Apple IIs. So it was like the computer itself was, it sat on this thing and it had a side. It was a floppy. It was the old 5.5 floppy disk.
Oh, wow.
So it would put in there and it would go and then load the game in, and your screen was this. You were lucky to even have it was like a colored screen, and it was this. I remember. Those machines were just so big when I was a kid. You're like, man, these things are huge for a computer,
Right.
But the Apple IIs is actually a popular machine. I wish I would have if I got a little older. I wish I would have bought one to have to tinker with because I think they're pretty cool machines.
Did you ever have a Commodore?
No, I did not have a Commodore.
Okay.
I had my uncle had one. It's not a Commodore. It was I'm not sure whoever made this. It was a keyboard. There was this built-in computer with a keyboard on it, and it had I think it had like a disk drive that came in. You would hook it to your TV, and it would turn your TV into a computer. But you can program on it, and one of the programs that he had on there was called Inchworm, and it was this huge program that you had to like input it in, and all the programming was go. And it has a little dot. It would just go across the screen. That's what this big program would do.
Oh, that's crazy.
But he was talking about. He said it was pretty neat at the time. It was something you could do and stuff. It was just like I'm like, man, computer stuff has come so far. Thinking about all this, early gaming system, even the Atari 2600 when it came out on market, you're like, oh, this is so cool. Play video games at home, and the graphics was very generic,
Right.
But having something to be able to play at home was awesome.
And I think to quote or semi-quote AVGN, Angry Video Game Nerd, I watched one of his Atari episodes and he talked about he's like, man, people in the 70s must, or because Atari I think was 70s, right?
Yeah.
The first one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people in the 70s must have had really big imaginations.
Yes.
He's like, because this was like, I think he talked about too how when he first got the NES when he was a kid, he got the NES for the first time. The first game that he played on it was Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh.
And he said that he was like, when I got to the end of the first level and there was like the bat character or whatever you have to fight. He's like, I just figured that was the end of the game. He's like, because I'm so used to Atari, where like you play for like 10 minutes and you're done.
Yeah.
Or 15 minutes or whatever, and then like the game is just repetitive and you don't really feel like playing it anymore. He's like, it blew my mind that there was like 6 levels that you.
Oh
had
yeah,
to
you actually had
complete.
to keep progressing.
Yeah.
So that's
were you
just
Ghosts and Goblins fan?
I like Ghosts and Goblins. I played the one for Super Nintendo.
Super Ghosts. Yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
It's a hard game, and my
is.
muscle memory on it now is probably really bad. But I used to go through those levels pretty good after I learned how to play it. But Capcom did so well with those. That was kind of. I almost felt like it was like a Contra clone, almost like with Konami, because Contra was so hard. You had 3 lives unless you did the 10-man code.
Right.
And, you go through and you want to try to hold your best weapon so you could clear the map as fast as you could. The same thing with Ghouls and Ghosts. You would want to get the best weapon to kill your guys, and then you would kind of remember certain areas, like the ground would come up and drop stuff, or something would fall out of the sky, or it's like, oh, I remember where I need to jump safely without getting hit and everything.
Right.
And you get your super armor. There's certain super armors that you would use for, like, the dragon one was mine, where you get hit the weapon and it would shoot the dragon around the whole screen. And it's like, I don't want to get hit because I don't want to lose my super armor. But it's just like game development with levels and stuff. I think. With Nintendo being so powerful at the time, I think it's just like, I was like, wow, I'm getting more bang for my buck because I'm able to progress further.
Right, yeah.
Like Super Mario Brothers. Even though that was kind of like the first in the series, you felt like, oh, well, I beat the castle in the first world. I'm done with the game. Nope, you have 7 more worlds to go.
A lot more to go.
And each world got harder and harder as you progress.
Right.
But
I have a hard hitting question for you.
Okay.
I meant to ask this last time, but I'm excited that I can ask it now. Let's say that you had like just an unlimited amount of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could go to any game company producer that has either ended a franchise, like hasn't come out with a game in a franchise, or had a game but then canceled it, and you just say, hey, I'm going to give you whatever funding you need to just make this game happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like what game would that be or franchise would you want to bring back or like see a sequel to, or if you need, I was gonna say, if you need to think about it, mine would be Mega Man Legends 3. That they came so close to releasing that game, and then they just pulled the plug because of funding.
I think mine would be with Sony if they would to make another Legend of Dragoon. Make a Legend of Dragoon 2, because that first game was so phenomenal. That was done by Sony.
I feel like I completely didn't even realize that they didn't have a 2 for that.
They had one that came out for PlayStation 1. They have never touched that series anymore.
I'm surprised by that.
The combat system was awesome. The storyline was good. I think they could have capitalized on it with a part 2.
Yeah.
And I think even today's standards with like the new technology, it can make a really super good one. If they use that same type of foundation they made with the first game. But that would be one that I would love to see be made.
That would be cool.
Because I would hands down, no questions asked, throw them my money if they were, like we're coming out with, I was like, take my money.
I feel like that's if like Jess and I talk about, if we ever happen to like win the lottery or win like an unspeakable amount of money. She's like, so like if we had fun money from that, like what would you do? And I was like, I'd probably go to Capcom and be like, listen, how much do you need to make Mega Man Legends 3? I'll just give you money. Just tell me what you need. You need a whole team? I'll buy them. I don't care.
We hired the people that made the first game. Let's get them in here.
I was like, we'll make it work. Whatever. You need like 25 million. Sure, whatever. It's like, but that's an astronomical amount for a game, or whatever it is. They're like, you would never spend that much. I'd be like, I don't care. I don't care. Just make the game.
Then make the game. I'll buy it from y'all. I'll even give you money to make it. And I'll even give you money for me to purchase it. So.
Yeah, it's like I don't even need royalties from it or anything. I just need you to make the game.
Yeah, I want to be able to finish up the story and be like, I'll be satisfied if you were to come out with a part 3.
I feel like that's a great question for the audience, though, too. If you could bring back any series or you wanted to see a sequel to something, let us know.
Yeah,
reach
that
out
would be
to
interesting. I would love to see someone's.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I would like to see what people's thoughts are on their games, and they.
I know I don't think that he would be throwing money at it, but I know Bruce had talked about a game that I hadn't heard about before called Supercars. Are you familiar?
That sounds familiar.
Familiar with that? I don't know. I was gonna do some research before, but then I totally forgot.
Yeah.
But I think it was called Supercars, but it was actually on the NES, so it wasn't even on the Super Nintendo.
Supercars. I'll have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, but what's funny about that is that I watched like a bunch of collectors on YouTube, like Amazing John Hancock and Metal Jesus Rocks and John Riggs. And John Riggs was at the Midwest Gaming Classic.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
He was at a booth and just randomly, like on video what he was recording, he pulled up Supercars. And he was like, oh, great game. And then he put it down. And so I was like, oh, man, I literally just was talking to somebody about this game.
Wow.
And then he like showed it on his video. And I was like, oh, I meant to do research on it. But Bruce highly recommended. I have no idea what it's about. But anyway. So
I kind of go off of that same question. Like, if I had a second series that I would love them to kind of reach out to, would be Sega's Saturn's version or a continuation of the Panzer Dragoon saga, which Sega made was the Panzer Dragoon with the Flying Dragon. It was like two felt like rail shooters that were the first two games, and the third one came out. It was actually an RPG. I have the RPG, and it's like one of the holy grails for the Sega Saturn because of how rare it is. And they don't have the original source code for that game, so they can't re-release it, which is why it's so expensive. But I think it was like 4 discs long, and that whole box holds 4 discs.
That's wild.
But it's an RPG, and it's got some full motion video in it. It's actually a really good RPG. I've actually played it through for a couple of times already. But I would love to see Sega maybe hand that off to somebody that can make a new version of that game. That would be so phenomenal. I love dragons. Dragons are like one of my favorite things. I love the Game of Thrones. I like this, anything with dragons in it. I'm just like, oh, cool. I love dragons. So,
right. You know what I was thinking too? We were talking about last episode about, I can't remember if we actually mentioned it on the podcast or when we were just chatting, but we talked about people that make games for older consoles now that can actually sell them, for a profit. And I was just asking the question about like the legality or like what hoops you have to go through to actually make that happen. But what I would love to see would be a major company releasing a new game for their older console specifically.
Yes.
So like PlayStation to come out and produce a like new franchise for the PlayStation 2. Or like Nintendo to release another Zelda game for the N64. Like, I wonder if like there's a reason why they can't, or not that they don't do that. I mean, I'm sure to keep up with, but I feel like retro collecting has become such a huge market, and like I feel like it's almost like you still have people with those consoles and like with that. Like, why wouldn't you just make a brand new game?
Yeah, and have a limited print of something being made for those that want to collect something like that.
Right? Yeah, that would be that's a $1 million idea right there. I feel like people would buy that.
Yeah,
like,
they would probably sell out. For someone, like, hey, get your pre-order in for this game for coming out. If you have a working console for something, I love the Sega Saturn. I wish they would have some more games for it.
Yeah,
or the Sega Dreamcast, which I know there is indie makers, but I would love the major studio to make a game for it.
And like, can Sega, like, now that the console is like out of, I don't want to say out of print, but like out of rotation, or out of sales, could they even like, do they still own all the rights to that system? Like, could they
the
make
proprietary
a game
parts
for it?
of that system, yes, but like the game, the third party people that produce the game, they would have to get like special licenses for
I gotcha. Yeah,
but like anything they made out of like studios, like from their studios, they could probably like, hey, we're gonna make this for the Sega Saturn. This is the game that we made. We're gonna re-release or a continuation of this game on the console, and like the Panzer Dragoon, they were only proprietary to Sega Saturn. No one else had those games. So if that's something they wanted to, I imagine there's probably some legality with the source code and who they would talk to about licenses. But I mean, it's probably doable if there's people involved that want to get that done.
Yeah, like I would just love to see Nintendo come out like with a brand new game or franchise
Yeah.
just on the Super Nintendo in today. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
for today,
Yeah.
like in today's world. And I'm sure too, it's like, oh, well, we'd be limiting our sales because not everybody has like the older consoles and stuff. But it would just be so wild to see.
But like, I think
especially because it probably wouldn't be that expensive to make since it's such old
Yeah.
hardware. It'd be
Right.
like spreading
Yeah.
butter on toast at this point.
But then for the people that actually collect retro gaming and buy a new game that actually came out for an older system and have it boxed, I think that would be like something like, oh, goody, look what I got.
That would be insane.
That would be insane.
Oh man, that's an idea right there.
It is an
And
idea.
here's the thing too, is I think you heard that here first. I don't know of any other podcast, gaming, or show that I've listened to where somebody has mentioned that. So you heard it here first
right.
on our recollection.
There's something a little bit more. It would be interesting to see if these companies would do something like that, because I think I think there would be a niche market for it. But I think if they were to limit how many copies they made and production value, I think people that are into the retro collecting be like, oh, I'm all over that. I want to get. I want this for my collection.
Or I feel like the like workaround too would be like, they have the minis coming out, like the PlayStation Mini, NES, Super Nintendo. You could just make it a digital download for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like something readily available now that still plays on modern TVs and things.
Like you were talking about that. So limited run games, you know who they are, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So limited run has actually made a few retro gaming things. There's a Nintendo game called Metal Storm, which was a little mech robot. They actually came out with a collector's edition. They re-released the actual NES game cart for that game. They also did it for the Game Boy Color, a game called Shantae, which was the little genie girl. It was a Game Boy Color game that's actually pretty valuable. They re-released it for Game Boy Color. You can actually buy a limited run version of that game.
Oh, wow.
And then actually the Game Boy Color version of the game.
Huh.
So.
Dang, okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely a thing that is doable. It's just depending on what parties are wanting to get involved in, or if it's something they would see.
Yeah.
I can definitely make some money off of this,
Yeah. I mean, as long as I can make some money, sure, but that would just be...
For me, I'm like, I like this stuff. So,
yeah.
I would eat it all day. So,
right. Man, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, just throwing it out there, Nintendo.
So, along those lines of like series, and we're talking about that, so I did bring a couple things in more today that I was kind of want to hit on. So, a favorite series of mine that there was 2 games. Actually, there was 3 games for this system. One was released in Japan only. So Chrono Trigger, I have the Chrono Trigger for Super Nintendo, which is one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
It's, the artwork is done by Akira Toriyama, which is everybody knows is Dragon Ball Z. It's actually a turn-based RPG that you're a character. Your name is Chrono. You actually fly back into different time zones to piece together a story. With this amulet, and of course, fighting different enemies. You make enemies, and you actually make some allies too from different time zones. Quite a bit of hours in this game. Love the story. Do you have the Switch online? You know what I'm talking about? Like, do you have the retro consoles or whatever, or digital consoles? Yeah.
Yeah. You do. We've talked about that. Is Chrono Trigger on there? Do you know for the Super Nintendo?
No, it hasn't.
Because I really want to play Chrono Trigger, but like probably just
there is a DS version of this that actually came out. And there's also a PlayStation version that was remastered. That actually it has animated cutscenes in it. It's done by Akira Toriyama.
Dang.
But they actually just released, brings me to my next game, which is a continuation of this story for PlayStation 1 called Chrono Cross.
Oh.
And it's a different set of characters on that one.
Oh my, yes, dude. I know exactly.
Yeah. It had the same type of same type of gameplay. You would look for progress. You would find people that would join your team, and you had like these tech skills that you could build with other people that you could do super moves with your teammates. And it was only certain teammates that would do it. the soundtrack for that game is phenomenal. Graphic wise, they just not too long ago re-released that game for Switch, and it's called Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers.
Really?
So here's the kicker on the two games here. So Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, from that, it's not a direct sequel. It's actually a fill-in story. So there was a plot gap in the very first Chrono Trigger game that Japan released a text-based game called Radical Dreamers that fills the story between Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross.
Oh.
And you can actually play that now. They localized it now. You can play it on the remastered version of Chrono Cross. So you can actually play the Radical Dreamers to get the fill-in plot line and then go right into Chrono Cross.
That's crazy.
It is very crazy, and
it's on the Switch.
It's on. You can play it on Switch. Yes, there's a version called it's called Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers. You can go to the store and buy it. If you've ever played the Chrono Trigger games. So
I'm surprised it came out on the Switch since this was on PlayStation. Like,
it's a Square Enix game, so I imagine.
Yeah.
So they remastered it. The game looks phenomenal. The frame rate for the game looks great.
I was gonna say, the cutscenes on the back here look really cool.
But the soundtrack's really neat, and able to play that plot line gap between the two games to kind of get a little know-how on why the Chrono Cross story makes sense.
Okay.
So I don't want to spoil it for anybody that wants to play this. So I'm just going to let you know.
I was going to say, I definitely want to. Yeah.
So definitely check out, if you have played Chrono Trigger before or haven't played Chrono Trigger, try to find, you can actually buy it for your computer. It's on Steam. You can buy Chrono Trigger for your Steam.
Oh.
You can, they've actually patched it. It actually plays really good on Steam. If you want to play.
Dang. Okay.
So if that's something you want to try, and then if you have a Switch, I think PS4 has it too, or PS5, I can't remember. But you can pick up the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers remastered on Switch and play it digitally if you want to.
That's crazy.
So, but yeah, I've beaten both games. I've spent quite a few hours on the second one. There's a special ending you can get if you have.
There's a Chrono Cross 2, you mean, or is there? Or is this the second game?
That is the second game.
Okay.
So Radical Dreamers was the one that was the text base was to fill in plot gap from the first game. So it's Chrono Trigger, Radical Dreamers, and then Chrono Cross.
Yep. Gotcha.
So basically almost 3 games. So.
Right.
But the character in the first game the main character was Chrono, and then the second game is Surge.
Okay.
So Surge is the second character, and then the Kid is in the second one. But they intermingle with the characters from the first one, or like the history. You kind of get a little bit more from what happened from the first game over to the second game.
Okay.
So, but definitely check it out. Both games.
I know. I'm gonna play. Maybe I'll stream Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger.
Dude, Chrono
I've
Trigger.
never played it before. So.
It's so involved. You have fun with it. It's turn-based. It's one of those ones where you can. The story changes as you progress.
Okay, yeah.
So there's certain dialogue you can kind of talk with. You can change the story.
A little bit, yeah.
The character designs are awesome.
I see on the back of Chrono Cross that it says unique designs eliminates random battles and experience points.
Yeah.
Do you know what it means by that? Is it like, so there's no random encounters anymore? And
you have some of them. So I can't really describe it as well. It's not like the first one where you would just run around, the enemies would come
like
out
Final
and attack
Fantasy
you.
style, yeah.
So, and then the tech points, actually, you would have elements that you would pick up, and each element was a different color. So you have red element that would do something, a white element that would do something, a black element, and so on and so on. And those elements in Chrono Cross would do different things. So you would need to build those up in the game.
Okay.
And so that kind of corresponds with the gameplay toward the end of the game. So you would need to have at least like a few of each color that you can have, and each one has a different level. So you could have like a yellow element that would be like a level 4, and then you get AP points to where you can use that element as you fight. So
okay.
So I don't want to give out too much.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
because if it's something you haven't experienced, I would like it's more fun to learn it yourself and everything.
I do remember always seeing Chrono Trigger on the shelf, when I'd rent games or whatever.
Yes.
And just thinking, like, why is, like, Goku in this game?
Yeah. Like, why has Goku got a sword and why has he got a bandana tied?
Yeah, and I was like,
on,
what's up with his hair? Like,
Yeah.
it looks a little different, but kind of the same.
Yeah.
But that's hilarious. That's awesome.
The Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games for Super Nintendo. Back when Square Enix.
I always hear stuff about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like...
It was on par with all the RPGs that came out for Super Nintendo. I think Square, when they decided to cut ties with Nintendo, I hated that they cut ties, but also if that hadn't happened, they probably wouldn't have had the PlayStation games that we have today, like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9.
Right.
That was a really well done game. Both of them are. I really enjoyed Chrono Cross. That's the greatest hits version. I'm still on the lookout for an actual black label. I would love to get a black label version of that game in my collection.
I just love to like hearing you say stuff like that because it just makes me think of the con.
Yes.
It's like I think but before like we go to the con. This is past tense, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
At cons in general, I want to get together a list of like, okay, like what would I be looking for?
Yeah.
Because I think for right now, I'd be looking for like the dirt cheap, like no one wants these N64 titles. Because I still have a bunch that I haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
That like if I could score like 10 or 15. $2 or $3 a piece because they're not very good games or they're not very rare, but like I don't own them yet to just fill my shelf. Like that would be awesome.
I'm actually already putting money aside, saving aside for if our goal is to get the Midwest Gaming Classic next year. I want to have a nice amount of money to be able to make a list of things I'm looking for that I can spend money on buying for my collection alone. Because it's so huge, and I think that's something that's kind of cool. Is like. Maybe have a brainstorm where it's like, there might be games that we're both looking for, to kind of go through and make a list of like, hey, this is what we want to look for while we're there, and then kind of talk about it in a podcast like, hey, I scored, this is the games I found at the con. I was able to make a profit on or pick up for a decent price, I think that's something that I have, like, I got quite a bit of stuff still I'm looking for that I like to have for but it's like you said, it's been kind of slow here lately because I got so many other things going on, but I'm hoping this summer I can, with the con, I can start looking for, hopefully find some more yard sales to go to or something like where I can find
yard
some
sale
games.
season is like upon us.
Yeah.
I saw the very first posting the other day that said like, throwing a garage sale next weekend, and I was like, "Oh, here it comes!
Here it comes! Here it comes!" They're pulling that box of games out of the attic that's been sitting up there for 10 years. I'm like, "Oh, what do you have?" Yeah,
and I think I was my pro tip from a couple episodes back was that if you go to a garage sale, be sure to ask about games because a lot of times they'll have gaming stuff, but they won't put it out because they won't think about selling that. You know what I mean? So they'll be like, oh, like I think I have like an old Nintendo, but I don't know why anybody would want to buy that. You know what I mean? And it's like, go get it. I'll
buy
give
it
you
from
$20.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah.
A lot of collections start with people going to yard sales and stuff because people are like, oh, it's this junk. I don't want to keep it, and you actually come across stuff and you actually score pretty big on yard sales,
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if they don't know what they have. And then, also be fair with your price too because deep down, you know how much that stuff's worth. So
it's a karma thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
you want to be
that sort of
you want to be an honest person buying from them too.
Right,
don't be too cheap, but don't over be expensive either. You kind of give them a fair price for it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but man, I think we're about wrapped up here.
Yeah,
if you can believe it.
I know. It's just it's been a.
I know. It's like I was just looking down at my watch and I was like, I think about another hour has gone by.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely check out Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. If you haven't played those before, play them. And you haven't played Chrono Cross or have played Chrono Trigger, definitely check out the remake where you can play Radical Dreamers to get the fill-in plot point, and then it's more of a complete thing, so you get more of a full story. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, dude.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here again.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out.
Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Sometimes when I listen back to these episodes, I'm like, man, I really gotta let Jeff talk a little bit because I feel like I just like take control of some of the conversation sometimes. So I love to hear you talk about it because I feel like when it comes to like the actual knowledge of games, you have so much wisdom about, you know what I mean? Like you know
Yeah.
so much more about. Like for me, it's more like I kind of know the hardware, like what I'm looking for. Like I'm more interested in like the deep cleaning or the restoring.
Yeah.
And not to say that you're not interested in those things also, but I feel like when somebody mentions a game, you can be like, oh yeah, like I know a lot about that game, or you know what I mean. You kind of know the history about it, which is just great.
Right.
So.
I like sharing what my knowledge is on stuff, and I mean, I'm on YouTube most of the time when I have free time, and I just keep up with it. And then if there's games that actually came out long ago that I've never heard of or even played, I'll try to find a way to play it to kind of see what it's like. And I'm like, oh, this would be nice to talk about. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I'm hoping that especially after with the con and everything, like I'll have some good stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that it'll be a really great turnout. We'll definitely have some information with that after we get there and do our podcasts and our interviews and stuff like that. So look forward to having some awesome content from both me and Mike. So.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Oh yeah.
So all right, well I think that does it for us this time. Be sure to check us out on like I said, Facebook. Sometimes I do TikTok stuff. We have streaming, which our Twitch now is our Retrolection. So you can just look us up on there.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, we'll probably come out with some more like kind of in between content with reviews and things like that. I know that if it hasn't come out yet, I know we are going to be watching like the Mario Brothers movie and I think Tetris comes out on Apple TV. Those reviews more than likely should already be out, but if you're only hearing about it now, go look for them and check them out because they're not in our weekly release. Or
and
whatever.
Also, like the kind of reiterate with anything, if there's any topics or something that you would like to hear more about from me and Mike, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we're just two dudes hanging out. So, talk about what comes to mind,
right?
But we'd love to hear. Any of your feedback or just like if you're like, hey, like I'd love for you to talk about this.
Definitely.
Whatever. But anyway, thanks for being here, guys. And until next time, collect, play, repeat.
Awesome. Later, y'all.
Later.